I have been making videos for you for the past 8 years or so, and you may have noticed that recently my channel has been through a big transition. And I've also realized that I don't share much of my life with you. And so today I would really like to share my story with you, so you can see where I'm coming from and also what is possible for you and why am I doing what am I doing and why am I creating the content that I'm creating for you. So I'm gonna start by telling you about a big event that happened 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I broke up with my boyfriend and I found myself being completely alone in a new apartment in San Jose in Costa Rica. And I was on this cold tile floor, just crying and couldn't stop crying. And we broke up because he didn't want to be monogamous anymore. And my mind was going back in memories and just remembering all the past events of the jealousy and resentment and anger I was feeling in this relationship. And at the same time, I really thought he was the love of my life because we had such a deep connection and love, if that's, if I can call it that way. So I was just feeling completely broken and shattered and so terrified in that moment because I didn't know what else to do. I felt alone and unsupported. And, my mind also went back into my childhood where often my mom was shouting at me all the time. Actually, all the children in the block knew that I was the kid that was shouted at all the time because they heard my mom far, far away. And sometimes I would go home when there was already a belt on a chair and I knew I'm gonna get beaten up. And so I left, I felt and I lived with constant terror as a child and crying a lot and trying to hide it from everyone because I knew there's absolutely nobody who could relate to me or who could help. And so I felt really alone and have just this deep sensitivity, just being triggered all the time and hiding. However, on the outside, I was very independent and maybe even successful. And people would have never guessed I was falling apart and having so many breakdowns down at the inside of me. And sometimes I would have these panic attacks. As soon as I could, I left my house and I was traveling and I was so obsessed with getting better because just by having so many traumatic experiences growing up, I decided to embark on this spiritual and self-development journey. So I've read so many, thousands of books about self-development and psychology. I went to study psychology and I finished 2 degrees, one in general psychology, one in transpersonal psychology and consciousness studies. I did countless of seminars and workshops. I traveled the world. I did shamanic ceremonies. I became a mindfulness and meditation certified instructor and transformative group facilitator. I studied with some amazing teachers, like nonviolent communication and different tools. And it really brought me a lot of different results. I felt more powerful. I felt like I was getting better. However, as soon as I was in an intimate relationship with someone, I was breaking down after, some time because I always felt like there was this thing coming out of me, like jealousy and anger. And I felt, again, very sensitive. So I felt triggered by every little thing. And I didn't want to show that into the world. I really thought there was something wrong with me. So I was hiding that. And I was hiding how much I was crying. And I was trying to hide my panic attacks. And so now let's go back to 5 years ago when I was on this cold tile floor, just completely broken down. I really hit my rock bottom back then because I thought that I did so much work on myself, and still when this happened, how come that I was completely just unsupported, and I've done so much work on codependency and all of that, and still I was finding myself in the same patterns. I also did a lot of therapy and childhood healing and healing childhood wounds. And yet I was there and really had this strong belief there was something terribly wrong with me, because after all of that, I still felt that way. And there was one moment where I reached out I reached out at my phone and I looked at my phone and the screen was off and I just saw my reflection. And as I was looking myself, the tears were just streaming down. I couldn't recognize myself. And in that moment, I just told myself, enough. I just knew that I can't go like this any longer, not even 1 second longer. I told myself, enough. Why is it that I couldn't be alone? Why is it that I always found myself in the same situation again and again and again with all these men who are completely unavailable? And then I was feeling like they're gonna leave me and that they left me. And then I was alone and I just couldn't be alone. Or even though I was independent and most of the time actually I was alone in my life, there was still deep inside of me this fear of actually being alone forever. And then I'm gonna be dying alone. And so I said enough. And I had no idea how I'm going to do that. But in that moment, I just know I will, and I will do whatever it takes. And after that, 2 things happened in my life that completely changed my life. And the first thing was that I actually did this amazing shamanic Iboga journey with the African medicine, which is a root from Africa. And it's used in ceremonies to have divine connection with the spirit and with the higher self. And it's one of the strongest, if not the strongest, medicine in the whole world. I've done so many ayahuasca ceremonies, but this time with this particular ceremony that happened with the shaman that came to Costa Rica, it was extremely intense journey, and I had so many insights and revelations. I had a lot of visions, but there was one particular one when the plant was actually showing me what it is, how the life is happening and how the whole universe is happening, how my life is happening, my stories, how are happening. And it was all shown to me that instead of this movie that I thought, that I believed my life is a movie, this is what happened in the past, and this is the present moment, and now this is the future. It showed me, no. It's just this one moment, one frame at a time, and the past and future were just falling down like some bricks, and it was so clear. And even though I knew this intellectually, like this time I was just shocked that I just really got it on this such deep level that wow, everything is just this one moment, one frame, and everything else is just smokes and mirrors. And I saw my story of my life, that it is just a story. And I saw that even this moment is already dreamt, because as soon as I think about it, it's already gone. And it had a huge impact. I really, after my journey, I couldn't sleep for 5 days. I was just sitting in my bed. There was just no need to do anything, not even check my phone. I was just completely blissed out by the present moment, and not having to go into my past stories, just was completely fulfilled. And I remember going back home and seeing my friends and looking at them for the first time. Instead of, looking at them, I really noticed that I was looking at everything and everyone through these filters from the past filter, who they were, which were just dreams in my mind. And I was able to look at them for the first time. And not only my friends, even when I was driving home, I remember I was just so curious what's going to happen behind the curve. Because even though I knew this journey, my mind was telling me I went on this journey, hundreds of times. I was driving there. But this time I was just having this curiosity and really this present moment awareness. And it was just so beautiful. Even things that normally would be upsetting to me, I just didn't get triggered. I didn't get upset. I just took them as they were. I was just like observing that this show was happening around me. However, after some time, my stories in my mind came back, and especially when I was getting closer to someone in a relationship again, and I started seeing these patterns of jealousy and anxiety and insecurity again. And so this is the second thing that happened to me that really was life-changing. I basically hired a coach, even though a lot of people told me like, oh, don't hire a coach because, they're just so expensive. They're just going to take your money, and they, just think positive. Just be grateful. You have such a great life. Look, you live in Costa Rica. Just be grateful for what you have. And even though I did feel grateful, I still felt there was a lot of attacking thoughts and I was blaming a lot of people for a lot of things that were doing to me. So I hired a coach, and straight away he introduced me into deep inquiry. And I remember after a session, I was walking my dog, and I just couldn't stop crying. I was crying and crying, just having this, I went so deeply with this inquiry that it felt like years and years of these stories were just like disappearing from me. And I just felt completely just so liberating. And I just felt so in trust with life, like what is next if I was able to break through all these stories. And so I spent hundreds of hours in meditation and in deconstructing my own mind, my stories. I was so lucky to have this space in my life. I was living in this habit house in the jungle, and I spent most of my day just going into meditation and really rewriting my stories and understanding my own mind. And it was just so liberating, and my life started changing drastically, and the people in my life started changing drastically. And so I decided to go and study with Katie Byron. And Katie Byron, she's the master of inquiry. She's one of the most fearless being I've ever met, the most compassionate and kind. And what I love about her is that she's just so committed to her work and to all the people that she's serving. And when I was studying with her, what she did with me in one day around past trauma, that couldn't have happened in like thousands of years of therapy. It just disappeared. It was gone. And I felt this, again, just going so deeply into what is possible in my life, and just deconstructing all of these past experiences so I can be really present. And I also went really deep with facilitating other people. And I remember on the way back, I was sitting on the plane and just crying from so much gratitude that I found something, or something has found me, because I wasn't even looking for it. That was so deep and so in line with my Iboga journey. It's all about this present moment that I didn't know what it was. I thought that I was always in the present moment. I didn't know how much I was affected by my stories and all these unconscious baggage I was carrying around. And so I was crying because I knew what's possible for me, and had this huge trust in the world and in life, just this love. I felt so much love, unconditional love towards everyone, like people who hurt me in the past, people who abused me, and all that liberation from that, I don't have to carry all of that fear and judgments and anger towards people. And now what was possible for me was just this, I just imagined this life where I can just be me. And after that, I started coaching and facilitating other people. And because I've always been so sensitive, for me, it was very easy to go really deep with myself and with other people too. And I find that with people who are highly sensitive, they are so easy to go into their pain stories, and they just break through really quickly. And what's possible for them, it just happens very quickly. And also shortly after this, I met my boyfriend, and he is one of the most, if not the most amazing human beings I've ever met. He's got such a big heart. We have so much, such resonance on deep level, and he's so generous and so committed to our love. Even though when we started at the beginning, we had some challenges, but now I just have this trust that whatever happens, I don't need him to do anything or to be in any other way. He's constantly just showing me what I'm not seeing about myself yet. And so I'm just stepping more and more into deeper connection and power. And we just expanding in this blissful state. And, to me, it comes down to one thing. When he does something I don't like and I come to him, normally I would just react to what he's doing because I wouldn't like that. And now I do my process and I come to him and see him for who he truly is. This moment where I understand that he was just showing something about myself, and I can come back to love and just love him no matter what is happening around. And this is what I want for everyone, because a lot of people just lose the love in their stories and to blame other people. And really, we don't have this navigation system that guides us back to ourselves to see what is actually possible from this moment without the past fear and stories. And so now I am compelled to help other people. And I know that there's a lot of people just like myself who are very sensitive, highly sensitive people, HSPs, and people who been probably on the spiritual journey or some self-development journey for some time. They did maybe a bunch of meditation and some therapy, read so many books, but they still feel stuck. They still feel like they don't have that thing that they truly desire, or every time they want it, like they just sabotage themselves. And maybe they feel independent and successful in some ways, but deep inside they are so scared to actually change or grow, or to actually move forward, to find that deep fulfillment and joy and energy, because they have this overthinking and anxiety that it's stopping them from just really expanding fully into who they truly are. And if that's you, then I would